female is this question: what is a human? And our culture does not know how to answer that question. Right? Part of the postmodern philosophy that has really become the spirit of the age today is that it rejects any overarching narrative. It rejects any claim to absolute truth. And so necessarily then, the idea of what kind of definition could we give to human that would actually apply equally to every single one, no matter what culture they come from, no matter what their background is, no matter what their ideas are. Like, what is that? What is a human? A definition that's binding on everybody. And there's nothing. There's no way to, and again, that's not a bug, it's a feature. But Christians, we say, no, God created human beings. And we'll talk a lot more about what that means, but at the very basic sense, we can say that human beings are God's creation. And so a human is whatever God says it is. Are we okay with that? But then where we will get into the male-female, none of you experience life as generically human. Yes? All of you experience that actually in a particularized, localized fashion. So all of you experience life not just generically as a human, but actually specifically as a human man or a human woman. Yes? And so to be human, it's not just to be embodied generally, but it's actually to be embodied in one sex or the other. And there's deep mystery in this, and there's beautiful diversity in this. To some extent, folks, men, you will never understand what it actually is to be a human woman, period. And the men are like, of course. And I don't know if this is your marriage or not. Like, if you're married, women, you will never understand what it is to be a human man, no matter what. Now, I just there got a much more robust, hearty acknowledgement from the men than from the women. I think, aside from anything else, this is a funny Brian note. It's not Bible, if I'm allowed to do that. I noticed this phenomenon. It's not across the board all the time, but in a lot of relationships, the men are more comfortable with this chasm of unknowability than the women are. I don't know if that's true in your relationship. It's been sort of true in ours, with Kelsey and I. If it's like, yeah, I don't think that I can ever really, truly, like, know what, we can understand one another. We can communicate, yeah? But I can't actually, we say like walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. I can't do that. I can't. And I'm relatively comfortable with that. And she's like, no, let's talk more. And I'm like, there's no amount of conversation that's going to bring. Okay, now, so the Bible tells us men are not women and women are not men. Now, are men and women equal? The problem, of course, is with how you define equal. So I'm going to be charitable. Those of you who said no. I get what you're saying. What you're saying is depends on what you mean by equal. Right? Okay, now so I didn't mean that to be a trick question, but I think it functioned that way. So let me say it like this. Are men and women equal in dignity? Yes. Equally bear the image of God? Equally worthy of respect? Okay. Equally precious as to their life and worth protecting? Okay. Now, are men and women interchangeable? Absolutely not. Now again, I don't really want to get into, we don't have time today to get, like, what is the actual distinction there? But the basic thing here is that men are not women, women are not men. There is equality of dignity, of essence, of purpose, of good, of the purpose to image God together. But men and women are not interchangeable. And this differentiation is not oppressive, but good. We need to be very biblical and godly with how we do that. We don't want to artificially construct views of what it means to be a man or a woman that have nothing to do with Scripture. Is that fair? But it's also possible that we will ignore real distinctions that God has made, and that we will unknowingly mirror our culture. Because we will actually treat, and this is what I mean by we're afraid sometimes to try to talk robustly and honestly, partly because there's deep mystery here. For most of human history, it's just been taken for granted that, like, of course, men and women are different, and nobody needed to talk about it. And in fact, it's very hard to talk about. It's hard to get at this mystery of this. But we don't want to ignore real distinctions that God has put in place. The difference between men and women not only is not oppressive, it is good. As all of the distinctions that God has made in creation, it is good. It's good because it means there is, in fact, a beautiful diversity in humanity.